So who knew that one of my most embarrassing moments would be meat for a homily? Well, here it is, a caulk gun. I was a freshman in college seminary. You know, that time when everyone's opinion of yourself is foremost. At St. Pius in the summers, they invited us to get a summer job. They wanted us to have typical life experiences. Prior to that, I had had 2 whole jobs. One consisted of working in an office building, putting stamps on letters and licking the envelope flaps all day long. Luckily, that job only lasted 2 weeks, or I would have gone completely mad. And I cooked in the Tumbleweed Mexican restaurant. Yes, that's Mexican in Kentucky. So as far as work went, I didn't have a lot of experience. So this summer, one of my high school friends had risen in the ranks of the Dries Construction Company. Notice I said Dries, not Dreves. I called David and I said, "Hey, do you think you can get me a job this summer?" Called his boss, and because David vouched for me, I had a perfunctory interview and he sent me to work at David's subdivision. I was hired as a laborer. Dries hired mostly subcontractors for all their work except the supervisor, David, the punch-out guy, Chuck, and me, the laborer. The laborer had one main task: keep the subdivision clean and keep the houses clean for the subcontractors. Other than cleaning, I had 3 other tasks. The first was to put in drain tile in basements. Yes, they have those in Kentucky. Screwing down the subfloors, so each 4x8 sheet of plywood got 28 screws. And that's in the whole house. So 4x8 is a lot of screws in a floor. And that was just in case the framers missed the joist. We wanted to make sure the floors didn't squeak. And caulking the plates. I refer you back to my 2 previous jobs. I knew nothing. So David takes me into a 2-story house that is completely framed. And he says, "Take this caulk gun and glue the plates. The drywall people are coming in today, and it needs to be done ASAP." Deer in the headlights. So he says, "Every wall is a plate. You're going to run a bead of liquid nails on both sides of every interior wall, just like you screw the floors down so they don't squeak. This is to make sure the walls don't squeak." "Got it?" "Sure," I said. "This should take you about an hour. Come see me when you're done." About 30 minutes later, Chuck walks in, the experienced punch-out guy, and says, "What are you doing?" "I'm still caulking the plates," I said. "Oh, okay," he says, and leaves, shaking his head, smiling. Should have been a clue. 2 hours later, David comes back and from the front door says, "Mark," I said, "I'm upstairs." And he comes up and he says, "Aren't you done yet?" And then he sees me. I have liquid nails all over my shirt, all over my pants, and my hands are covered in glue. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "This caulk gun doesn't work. I squeeze and nothing happens." And he takes it, puts the caulk in, flips it, and starts squeezing. And it's just like a child's nose in Christmas. It just comes running out. I'm like, it didn't work for me. Little did I know that old caulk guns had teeth along the bottom so that when you squeezed it, it pulled the plunger into the caulk, which made the caulk come out. I was doing it just by sheer gravity. And being compulsive, I didn't want that bead of caulk to be all over the place, so hence rubbing my fingers along every plate to smear it. That's why my hands were covered in glue. Also being compulsive, because the glue sticks to my hands, it's now not smooth, so I'm using every finger because this one's dirty, and this one's dirty, and this one's dirty, and this one's dirty. So, not a good experience. Completely embarrassed, we walk out of the house. David sees the drywall guy sitting outside waiting, and he says, "Why didn't you tell him?" They all start laughing and say it was just too much fun watching him struggle. Did the caulk make me unclean? Yes, I was filthy, glue all over me, but that didn't change the inside. In our first reading, Moses is telling the Israelites who are about to enter the Promised Land to observe the decrees and the statutes of God so that they may enter the Promised Land and take possession of it. Jesus, in the Gospel, is chastising the Pharisees, who are so worried about cleansing and purity, they have forgotten the law of Moses. They are worried about the caulk on the outside and not the soul. The decrees and statutes of God are the Ten Commandments, God's divine law written in our hearts. We know when we are sinning. We can feel it inside us. That is God's law written on our hearts. And sinning is going against that voice inside us that tells me, "This is wrong, Mark, don't do it." But I do it anyway. I silence God and I do what I want. Jesus says, "Hear me and understand. Nothing that enters one from the outside can defile a person, but the things that come from within are what defile. Evil thoughts, theft, murder, adultery, these are what defile us, not the things that make us dirty on the outside." God gifted each one of us with a brain to choose. We have free will. You made a free will choice today to come to Mass. Now you are about to make another, receiving Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. Jesus chose death so that we might have life. I invite us to choose. Choose to follow the divine law that is written in our hearts and receive Jesus with pure hearts. And if you need forgiveness, seek it. The Eucharist is here for you every day. Let's worry about our souls, not our dirty hands, so that we can enter the true Promised Land. And remember what John Paul II said, "We are not the sum of our weaknesses and failures. We are the sum of our Father's love for us."